Welcome to the Daily Debrief, an inside look in today's big story. I'm Jason Denant, and with me today I have 13 Investigates reporter Joe Bartels, and he's got an interesting story about bones found in a backyard here in Las Vegas. Joe, tell us a little bit more about this story. How did you find out about it, and what was found in this backyard?
Well, I found it on Twitter. There was some chatter, and I kind of got onto this. And so I asked whether they thought that we could do a story on it. Like, yeah, we're kind of scratching our heads because we're not sure exactly what we have on our hands. So the story goes like this. A couple had built a brand new home at Grand Teton in Buffalo in the north part of the valley, and they wanted to get a backyard pool. Well, the pool builders were there digging a hole, as you can imagine, for an in-ground pool, and they made a very interesting discovery. It was a set of bones that were buried about 4 to 5 feet below the surface, and they didn't know what they had. The homeowners apparently didn't find out about it until this past Monday when police were there at the home, and they're like, what the heck is going on? And it turns out police were called there by the pool builder because they didn't know if it was human remains or not. So police, CSI showed up, they looked at the bones, determined that they were not human bones, they were too big, but they were of no law enforcement concern. And the homeowners were like, well, what do we do now? And they're like, well, that's up to you. And they left. So they got a historian from the Nevada Science Center that came out, took a look at the bones, and has determined that they belong to a large mammal up to 14,000 years old that roamed Las Vegas before or just after the most recent ice age for
Wow.
Earth.
Did they have a determination of what exactly, was this a dinosaur? Was this a mammoth? Did they have any idea of what exactly it is or no?
Well, they think it might be a large mammal, probably not a dinosaur, but probably more along the lines of a horse, for example, something that was more common to the area that would have used the area for a naturally occurring spring. And it's very close to Tule Spring fossil bed, which has a history of some very sizable discoveries, including mammoths before. So this area not necessarily a stranger to these discoveries, but still a very old and I would say rather rare discovery nonetheless.
Now, in your story, you did talk about that the law says that if bones are found or fossils are found on a property, that they are the property owner's remains or fossils. Now, is there a value to these things? Are these people going to hit a big payday out of this?
Um, Probably not, but that remains to be seen. So yeah, I learned through the course of this story that in the United States, if fossils are discovered upon a piece of property, they essentially belong to the property owner and they don't become property of the government of the United States, for example. So in this case, the homeowners really want to find out to what extent these bones have any kind of scientific value because they really want to make sure that if it is of a scientific nature of significance, they want to be able to offer that to science to help better understand our primitive Earth and kind of give us a better understanding of the history of the area and what kind of wildlife kind of inhabited Las Vegas. So they're still in the process of doing that. Likely not any kind of value, but it's certainly a cool story. They're saying what a neat thing it is to maybe have that story as a homeowner or what have you, but they're not sure what they're going to do next with it.
Now, if you do find something like this on your property, is there any steps that you should be taking other than, making sure, one, that they're not human remains, that they are indeed a fossil, but if you know that they are fossils, what should you do?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is, of course, like you mentioned, you want to make sure that these aren't human remains. So if you have any concerns, of course, you probably should phone authorities, run it by them, and see if they need to come out and investigate. So that'd probably be step one. Step two in this case is they started to reach out to a number of, historians or museums to get kind of a better idea of how one should look into these bones. So if you do have something that's buried, maybe like these folks had 4 or 5 feet down, you might want to try and consult some sort of expert to see whether you have something of any kind of scientific value or research value for the scientific community.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining me here in the Daily Debrief. Now, if you want more of today's top stories, visit ktnv.com and stay with us after the break for more right here on KTNV Stream.